Let's go. Bitcoin, 1, 2, 3, or 1 million, 2 million, all the way up to 21 million. We can start. Anoush, great to meet you. Thanks for joining us on Block Chai. Last time I had a Coke. This time I have some water. It's a little, but eventually we're gonna start drinking some Indian chai, which my wife loves. But good, great to meet you. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. Nice to meet you as well. Pleasure to be here. I've been hearing a lot about you, but we haven't been introduced. So yeah, pleasure to be in touch with you now.
Oh, ditto. Same thing. And then love, learning more about what you do. And so it's a pretty informal. There's no specific agenda. It's very laid back. It's not like there's 21 questions or something like that. I'd love to, and probably a little bit less tax and more about Anoush, right? Because I know you're a tax expert, but I'd love to hear more just about your background and how you stumbled onto Bitcoin, right? How you guys are doing now.
Yeah, I think it's pure happenstance for most of the people. So a little bit about my background. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm based out of New Delhi, India, and been working with the Big Four for a while. I just stumbled upon Bitcoin and I was like, what is this? And there's so much conversation around fintech and how fintech space is going to change. But being a finance person, I had absolutely no idea about it. So started reading up a little bit. I realized that it requires more time than reading up a little bit. So I quit my job and I started reading up a little bit more. And then I just realized that, this is the industry I need to be in. That was the start. Also realized that there was a big vacuum in the Indian ecosystem in terms of tax and regulatory advisory. People didn't know how to get in and get out, right? People wanted to get in to make a quick buck, but because there was nobody to actually guide you in this space, people were doing all sorts of transactions, not intentionally, but a lot of them were on the wrong side of the law just because they didn't have proper guidance. So that sort of motivated me to get in and bring more legitimacy to this industry. And yeah, just been doing that for the past almost 3 years now. And it's been a hell of a ride, I would say.
Wow. And so if you started 3 years ago, I mean, you kind of heard about Bitcoin probably, longer than that, right? So, did it first come on your radar and you're like, wow, this is crazy? Or was it like pretty instantaneous that you got the idea of the blockchain,
It came on my radar back in 2016 towards the fag end when demonetization happened. This term had become very popular then, and at that time I was pretty. I would say I didn't have much knowledge about it. I thought it's illegal. I thought it's used for money laundering, and because it was being associated with demonetization, I thought it can't be good, right? That was the first instance with Bitcoin. Second was obviously when December 2017 it hit the peak of 20K, and since then that's when it caught my attention, and I wanted to study a bit more. But yeah, I wish I had gotten into it much earlier. Things would be very different today.
No, what's interesting is it like these really big cycles where Bitcoin goes through like huge massive adoption. It's almost like I look at them as waves. Like, so imagine like this: you're on a beach, and this huge wave comes in, and it really gets people's attention, and it brings them into the ocean, but then what happens is that it causes a bigger wave next time, and then a bigger wave next time, and so that's cool. And then I'm assuming also you said initially Bitcoin was used for money laundering. It was kind of a lot of media was giving it the negative implications. Did when you made the switch, I'm assuming you decided to buy in. Was it scary for you at first, or like or did you tiptoe in, or how did you actually decide, hey, this is actually interesting in a sense? Like this.
Yeah, I think initially when I was studying about it or reading up, I thought I'll just read up and not do anything. But I started to realize that there's no way I can understand how it works without actually buying into it a little bit. So you're right. I tiptoed in a little bit, but my fundamentals had become so strong in terms of my belief that even though we were in a period of the RBI banking ban, it still didn't matter to me that there were restrictions around it. I wanted to get in, and I honestly. My first rendezvous would have been during the bear market or the crypto winter, as they like to call it. But I was just so strong in terms of my belief that it didn't matter at that stage.
That's awesome. Totally. So I watched a couple of your interviews, and one thing I'm wondering is what is the most common question like people ask? Like probably is Bitcoin illegal, right? Is that probably the most common? Yeah. Or is there something else? What is the most common tax or regulatory question that people come and ask you?
I think it's to do with freelancers or software developers who get paid in crypto. They also have a very strong belief around the fact that they want to hold on to it for longer. So they feel that automatically they invest that money, they don't liquidate, so they don't have to pay taxes. But that's where I have to clarify that no, as soon as you book some income, 30% of it belongs to the government, right? You can't invest the government's money on their behalf. I would love that the government has exposure in Bitcoin, but you can't choose and do that for the government. So that's the most common question that I get asked, and I would love that the RBI has some exposure to Bitcoin. But yeah, it's possibly it's what I keep on every day.
Yeah, I remember I was in one of your interviews. It was whenever you get paid is Bitcoin is for services, something like that. You got to look at it as two transactions. One is you're getting paid. The other one is you're investing. It's actually a great point. And absolute positivity, it would be good. It would be good if the government took Bitcoin as or whatever as taxes, but they don't. That's your point. What's really cool is a lot of rules exist for law, like barter and exchange and all this other stuff. But people don't realize is that tax laws are kind of made to kind of adapt with technologies, right? And so let's another thing I want to ask about is this is a unique way. Imagine you are, you're the head of the income tax department, or even, you're a member of parliament. How would you design tax? This is very, very simple. Let's do second grade tax policy, right? If you're designing, crypto tax policy in India, how would you design it? A very simple version of it, right?
Sure. So, I'd like to touch upon the basics of tax a little bit here. How the parliament or the government has designed taxes is to encompass all sorts of income, whether or not it's crypto or it's any other technological innovation, say 5 or 10 years time. They can't possibly keep changing the law every year to include newer types of income, right? They said all incomes are taxable. And I think that was a very smart thing to do, because then there is no scope of arguments. There's no scope for misinterpretation. Any income that you make, unless it is agricultural income, which is free from tax, it's going to be taxed, right? I heard a very funny argument that yield farming was exempt because it was agricultural income, but I had to shut that down. So all incomes are taxable. That's how the law has been made here. Very specifically to crypto-based incomes, I think the government does need to come out with certain guidelines on how it interplays with GST, on how crypto to crypto needs to be taxed specifically, what kind of disclosure requirements there are in India. We've recently heard that private companies need to be disclosing it on their balance sheets, but a lot of people tend to not get into this ecosystem or invest because there is not enough regulatory guidance from the income tax department. And whereas I feel that they might not ever come out with it because all incomes are taxable, it will benefit a lot of people to feel more comfortable when they know that the income tax department is clear about its position.
Yeah, totally. I think what I would do, because I've been thinking about tax policy. Is it Bitcoin? It's just a digital asset. It's like a domain name, or it's like a digital piece of art or something like that. And you get treated as a capital asset. And if you buy it, great. But if you sell it, you have to pay capital gains, right? And so and the other thing which you could do is you could do some really cool policy type things where you do want people to report their income, right? A lot of in a lot of countries, in America and India, there's a lot of compliance issues where people don't report. So if you lower taxes, you'll have higher reporting, right? And if you have very, very high taxes, you have a lot of people who don't comply with it, right? And so it'd be good to have, let's say, taxes. One thing, a good question I've been seeing in interviews is that in India, less than 3 years is short-term capital gains, but longer than 3 years, you're saying is long-term gains. In America, it's really more like 1 year. Is that for all types of assets? I didn't know that 3 year time frame was there in India. So what is it? How do they do the 36 months or 3-year aspect of the test for long-term gains?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, before we get into capital asset versus any other type of categorization, what you need to see is the nature of the activity that you're engaging in. If you're looking to make profits off of the volatility in Bitcoin, which there is immense, then you are likely to get classified as a trader or undertaking a commercial activity. In that case, it's not going to be a capital asset. It's going to be treated as a stock in trade, as inventory that you keep buying and selling. That gets taxed as business income towards the end of the year, depending on what profits you make from the net amount of all trades. If you intend to make money off of capital appreciation, now whether that's a 2 months, 3 months, 6 month, 1 year, 6-year period, the intent is very important here. The intent was you made a single transaction or your dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, but you intend to hold on to it for a certain period. That's when it tends to get classified as a capital asset, and then accordingly you end up paying taxes on short term, long. To answer your second question, Rahul, not all assets are defined as long term or short term, depending basis a 3-year period. Equities are defined during a 1-year period, but because there is no which gets classified as 3 years below is short term and 3 years above is long term.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so interesting in the sense that because there's not yet clarification of it's not an equity, but that's awesome. And then I guess, what do you think? Do you think we're gonna have a lot more clarity on tax policy this year? You hear all these news and stuff going out. I guess if you had to predict what's going to happen, do you think there's going to be a ban? Do you think there's going to be? And of course, this is all speculation we're talking about. But what do you think will happen over the next, the next 6 months or next 1 year?
Yeah, I think there were rumors about the ban in Jan, primarily because the price was scaling pretty high and the government wanted to deter a lot of people from getting in. The bill is not ready yet, is what I understand. I think the government, they're taking a slow approach. They do realize that the initial position was possibly very extreme and there's going to be a lot of pushback on it. So they're taking their time. They're having discussions with as many appropriate people as possible. And we do hope that they come out with a very, very supportive regulatory framework. At this stage, it's very difficult to comment unless we see, a draft bill that similar to what was circulated in 2019. And I really hope to God it's not that. But I do think that the government has taken into cognizance that there has been a lot of uproar around such a draconian move. It's just something that is going to penetrate the entire country, whether or not the government bans it or not.
That's great. So I agree. I think that the 2019 bill was pretty draconian. It's not. I don't think that's going to pass. If it was kind of like a different kind of intent 2-3 years ago. And I kind of agree with you. I'm hoping what ends up happening is I think India is more of a wait and see. They want to see how other governments that they respect how they're handling it, and then they want to go after it, right? So what can ZebPay do really to help more compliance? What do you think we can do as a company?
I think exchanges in India play a crucial role because you guys are the ones that provide the trade reports in a basis which people can create their profit and loss statements and file their taxes. I think integrations with a number of these tax reporting tools, which make it easier for investors or traders to figure out their net profit and loss balances, would be a great way to get that started. Also, it becomes much easier and self-dependent for them because they don't have to go to CAs, they don't have to pay a lot of money, as well as spend a lot of time trying to explain to their local CA that this is not illegal. Self-reliance, I think, is the way to go in the crypto space, and just these tax tools are doing wonderfully. Will make a lot of Indian traders and investors' life very easy when it comes to compliance.
Yeah, exactly. You want really simple tools. There's already a lot of great tax reporting rules, stuff like that. So I agree fully. How do you think blockchain can improve, let's say, revenue collection for the government? And do you see that happening?
Yeah, I think think that's where CBDCs become very, very important, because that enables the government to have track on all funds all over the country, and possibly through a smart contract implement that on each transaction 1 or 2% of that amount gets deducted and gets deposited into the government's treasury. That's where I think automation, that's where smart contracts and tokens can interplay very well and enable taxation at a very, very grassroots level, and at the same time reduce the compliance burden on every individual. If they pay 1 or 2% tax, or say possibly 0.01% tax on each transaction, they don't have to do so many complicated tax compliances at the end of the year. I think CBDCs could really simplify things, not to take away the fundamental strengths of Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other digital asset, but I think that's one of the major reasons why governments are looking into CBDCs at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, think how cool that would be. If you had, for example, we on our platform, we list Pax Gold, which is Pax G, which this is a asset which is kind of backed by real gold from the Paxos Trust Company. And I don't know if people realize, but on the smart contract, anytime you make a transaction, they take a small fee in the Pax G token, right? And if you had a pretty cool, let's say CBDC or some sort of, let's say a stable coin, it'd be so much easier if, like, whenever you're doing some transactions or DeFi farming or smart contract connections, you don't even have to file your tax. But one bad thing that puts people like you out of business, or you'll have a 6-month vacation versus like a 6-day vacation.
So
this is a pretty wild, future. Do you think that does that happen in our lifetimes, or is it many years in the future? Do you think we'll eventually get to a system where whenever you're sending stuff, you're paying taxes in real time, I guess?
I think transaction tax, specifically in India, has been a topic which has been about since the last 10 years, because the government has been looking at reducing the compliance burden, the complications around direct taxes and indirect taxes. So they're trying to envisage a system which is a single tax and nothing else. How will it happen? It could happen through CBDCs. I see them as the most efficient mode of deducting taxes. Will it happen in our lifetimes? I think in the next 25 to 30 years, we'll probably at least see like a demo or something. I think digital assets are going to go mainstream in the next 10 years, and CBDCs can't be left too far behind.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that time frame. I think over the next 10 or 20 years, digital assets become way, way more mainstream. I mean, I still think, probably only 100 million people around the world probably own crypto assets. Maybe it's going up a little bit every day. It's going up definitely every day, but that's out of north of 7-8 billion people, right? So when on CBDCs, when they do get launched, and I think they will kind of fit, it's a complementary with Bitcoin and Ethereum. But do you think that people will? Most people will own both. Most people own they'll own the CBDC, and it'll run like on called a layer 1 blockchain or something like that, or once CBDCs come out, I guess, do you feel like that's the point where crypto assets become mainstream?
Yes, I think so. And that was my belief when Facebook launched Libra as well. People will start questioning why there has been a drastic change in how money works. And that's honestly how I understood the entire monetary system as well, right? We've been through school, we've been through college, and I, being a complete finance person, I was never taught how money works. But when I noticed that there was a drastic change, somebody was talking about money in a different manner, that's when I started noticing, okay, what is fiat? What is fiat backed by? Why is there this problem of money printing? And I think all of those questions, when they start being asked, that's when you realize that there is certain value in digital assets. There's value in scarcity. There's value in Bitcoin. So this change from traditional monetary systems to CBDCs is going to bring about a lot of people asking questions, and eventually, them understanding digital assets a lot more, and obviously that facilitates mainstream adoption.
No, absolutely. I mean, it is very interesting to see. I just put a post recently, a social media post about the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum assets like that, they slowly, I guess, appreciate over time. And by slowly, it's very volatile. While fiat currencies slowly depreciate over time, right? And it's because one is the scarcity's, kind of there, and one is not. And so, what do you think of Libra? You brought it up. Like, do you think Facebook's now it's called DM? Do you think? Yeah. How do you think that will do in comparison to say to a fully decentralized currency like Bitcoin or a fully centralized CBDC? Right.
I think the power of their network is phenomenal. The fact that they have 2.5 billion people on their network, they can outdo any bank at the flick of a switch. So they're taking a very slow and conservative approach. They're trying to keep the regulators on board, which is why I think they have changed their entire process quite drastically. I was pretty excited about the fact that Mark Zuckerberg or somebody with that much of a reach decided to back crypto and back digital assets and back money being circulated over the internet. And I think it's going to have a phenomenal impact because of WhatsApp and Facebook and all of the other integrations they have. People could possibly be living their lives on these apps as well as making payments, receiving salaries. Obviously, it depends a lot on the regulator how they allow it to work, but I think it's going to have a phenomenal impact. Also, similar to CBDCs, it's going to take a lot of more people into digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. People will start asking questions. That's what's important for us.
Totally. Related to like kind of apps, disclaimers is I'm on the board of Brave browser, but I don't know if you've heard of Brave, if you ever used browser, but they have the BAT token. So like, do you see more apps having utility tokens and things like that? And what do you think of the app coins? How do you see those change? And I related to that, sorry, maybe answer this, is a tax question. Like the income you get from BAT earnings is very small, but like so what happens in the long run for, let's say there's millions of people in India who are earning let's say $50-$100 a year in tips and stuff like that.
Yeah, first of all, Rahul, I'm currently taking this call on Brave browser. I've been using it for a while now, and I love it. I think the interface is really good. It blocks ads, it blocks pop-ups. It's much faster. So I'm very glad to know that you're on the board. And in terms of taxability of airdrops or these free tokens that you get, you can just add them to whatever is your primary activity, right? If you're a trader, and because of these trading activities, you get a few airdrops, just add it to your business income. If you're liquidating capital assets, and if there's like a very small bunch of airdrops that you've liquidated as well, obviously it's a zero cost asset. You have to pay taxes on the entire amount. There is no deduction that you get, but feel free to deduct it with the primary income that you're disclosing.
No, I love it. And related to that, so obviously the big news is Tesla, a lot of other companies from, a lot of large endowments are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. What do you think of this news? And from there, I want to talk about, when do you think some Indian companies will start doing it? But,
I think it was inevitable. Nobody better than Elon Musk, because he's been a pioneer in the fintech innovation space. We know he started X.com, which became PayPal, and the fact that he has a vision for Bitcoin, he believes in it, goes miles to say, how good this technology is, what kind of potential it has. I think more and more companies will follow suit. A lot of companies might not be disclosing it at the moment because they still feel that they might get blowback from their investors. Obviously, people like Michael Saylor or Elon Musk are a lot more cavalier. They have the bandwidth to come out and say it publicly. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this in the next 5 years. Institutional adoption is no longer coming. It's here, and it's here to stay, I would say. So it's going to be very exciting next 4 to 5 years to see so many more companies. Interestingly, recently, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs in India also announced that private companies in India were supposed to disclose their cryptocurrency holdings and their profit and loss. And I think this is going to give a lot of comfort to Indian corporates or institutional investors to get into this ecosystem. This has been something that they've been waiting for. Me being a tax accountant, I do understand that this is a very common question. How do we disclose it? And I think it's going to have a real positive upside in terms of corporates wanting to get exposure into this new asset class.
Yeah, exactly. I think once they realize that, hey, listen, I can report this on my taxes, then they probably will. So when you're saying 4 or 5 years, do you think 4 or 5 years globally, or do you think over the next 4 or 5 years there's going to be even some adoption in India too?
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 years globally for a lot more institutions to come in. India might be a bit slower. From my understanding, there's the retail market or the individual market is a lot bigger. Yeah. But I do think that maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, we'll have the likes of possibly Reliance, Infosys, and the bigger companies coming out and disclosing that treasury, some part of that treasury in Bitcoin. I do hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look right now, I don't know if really any Indian companies which have owned some. I've mentioned before, ZebPay at the Singapore level, not our Indian entity. The Singapore entity owns Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Bitcoin and Ethereum; those are our two favorite currencies, and so we believe in it well. We've been doing it, since I've been involved with the company, since I got on the board, so a couple of years ago. What about just very interested in I know you're a tax advisor, so feel free to kind of be vague on this, but what this is not investment advice, but what assets do you like?
I think I'm safe to say I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. If I were to hold 100 rupees worth of assets, possibly 99% would be in Bitcoin. Recently, I started getting into Ethereum a little bit as well, because the entire DeFi ecosystem and the ICO ecosystem was built on Ethereum. I've been feeling that its use case is a lot more than maybe what its price reflects historically, and maybe how it's doing as well. Obviously, there are restraints in terms of network congestion, in terms of gas fee, but I'm looking forward to the new upgrades coming in the Ethereum network and seeing it as possibly the world's largest supercomputer. And apart from that, honestly, I tend to study assets in a lot more detail before I come out with a position. So as of now, I would say I'm just looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum.
No, exactly, and that's why. And for example, some of the ZebPay founders, I mean, I wouldn't say they're maximalists, but I call it fundamentalists or something. A lot of people who believe in Bitcoin, they and I'm like that too, man. Bitcoin was my first love. The reason why I do like Ether, I feel like it's kind of like Bitcoin 2.0. If Bitcoin's a work of art, and you don't want to really mess with a beautiful piece of work of art. What Ether does, it takes it and you can kind of evolve it, right? It's a open source version of Bitcoin. It's an improvable version. So cool. And what about NFTs? What do you think of non-fungible tokens? And I'm assuming if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, you think those are a little crazy as well, right?
Yeah, I've been following them pretty closely. I saw the 5,000 days of that collage, which got sold for $69 million. I've been hearing the most random people talk about NFTs in my circle, people who have absolutely no idea about crypto or digital assets or blockchain, and that's when you get to know that this is definitely picking up steam. So I'm following it pretty closely. On it, full disclosure, I have not bought or I do not own any NFTs at the moment. I think I'm going to give it some time before I'm comfortable with these being like a long-term value proposition. Possibly could be like a very, very hyped at the moment, like the ICO stage was back in 2017. So I'm keeping I have a close eye, but I'm keeping a safe distance from them.
No, so I think NFTs, a good example of NFTs, they're a lot like domain names. And so, in fact, some of the most widely used NFTs are, there's you might have heard of ENS, which is the Ethereum name service. These are like kind of, let's say, distributed, domain names. There's a thing called unstoppable domains. There's actually another really common company called a YAT. They're doing like emoji kind of like almost usernames, things like that. And so that's where I think NFTs really go. NFTs are going to be more like, hey, I really like, Anoush.com. And, you love it, you want to buy it, great. But now it will end up happening, it was worth a lot to you. And it would be worth to a lot of people with the same name. But, art really is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, really, really interested in there. So great. I'm gonna throw it to you. Do you have any questions for me, or about ZebPay or about Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Yeah, sure. I've been following you guys pretty closely since 2000, since the time I got in, and I just love to know about what plans, what's in store for the future. Are you planning to get into NFTs and digital art and trying to list different stuff? What's in the pipeline for ZebPay in the near future?
No, exactly. I got involved back in ZebPay in 2018, but right after the RBI ban, and became CEO about a little bit over a year ago, January of 2020. So we have a ton of cool stuff on the horizon. So a couple of things that we've announced are this we call it Project Dazzle, and Dazzle is going to be an NFT marketplace. So I actually believe that NFTs in the longer run will be bigger than probably every coin other than Bitcoin, right? And the reason why I say that is that this is a big question about Bitcoin, let's say maximalism versus something else, is that if you take up Bitcoin's like digital gold, and gold is amazing. It's worth $10 trillion. But if you add up all the equities and other assets in the world, they're going to be worth more than Bitcoin. It's going to be worth more than gold. I mean, you add up hydrogen and helium and nitrogen. And so what I think will happen is there's a lot of really cool stuff in India, from like Indian art to car titles to insurance. And so we think that in the very beginning, people use these NFTs for game, in-app purchases in a game, or like a crypto kitty. But in the longer run, the value of it is really going to come in the utility. And what I mean by utility is that if you own a stock, if you own Apple stock, it's fun owning Apple stock, but the best thing about Apple stock is you get a dividend, right? And it's a security. It's really interesting. But imagine that you owned the Mona Lisa, right? Or imagine you owned a small segment of a Bollywood film. You can actually make that into an NFT, right? Imagine a clip. And what ended up happening is, if you use the Brave browser, you'll see it. When you open up a new tab in Brave, every third tab is a sponsored image, right? But the other two tabs, they are just really beautiful backgrounds, right? They're images of a landscape or some flowers or something like that. And let's say you own the Beeple art, the one that sold for $69 million. What's really cool is, in the longer run, you'll be able to, if you own that art, and let's say that art's being displayed as a background in Brave, you actually get income off of it, right? You get So that's what I think happened. I think in the longer run, people will want to own NFTs for that purpose. So there will be a supply and demand. So we're really excited about ZebPay getting into NFTs in the long run. A couple of things we're doing is these are, and it's so hard because we're competing globally against phenomenal companies like Coinbase and Binance. But we're launching a staking service. We're launching lending and borrowing pretty soon. It's all coming out within the next few months. Because one of the best things about these crypto assets is that you should be able to get income off of it, right? I am a big believer in not your coins. You should keep most of your crypto in cold storage, right? Whatever you don't want to, what you should keep on an exchange is basically what you want to trade, right? Absolute positively, believe that if you have your stuff in a BlockFi account or in a ZebPay account, we want to give income to people, right? So we're launching some ways for people to stake and people to earn interest. And then the really big thing we're working on is an app called Bitcoin by ZebPay, and you'll love this one app because this is really call it the fundamentalists or the maximalists, right? We realize that I'm a big believer, like, man, Bitcoin is the best asset in the world, right? Now people are like, why do I like Ether? I guess Ether is like, call it the sun or queen. I look at it as Bitcoin, but a different version of Bitcoin. So when I'm talking about this stuff, like, I actually look at Bitcoin invented it, and then Ether is just kind of like a different flavor of Bitcoin. But because Bitcoin's the best asset in the world, we wanted to make an app which just makes it our goal is just make it super simple and easy. While a lot of exchanges are getting more complex, right? They're adding a lot more tokens, a lot more puts and calls, stuff like that. We're going to make buying fees free, so you can actually buy Bitcoin with 0 fees. And it's super simple. You'll be able to make interest off it. So really excited about launching that as well. But I love the fact that you're a huge Bitcoiner, and I'm assuming you do what I recommend. You hodl it. You buy and you hold, right? Do you trade it?
Yeah.
You probably don't. You're too busy to trade.
Not too much. To be honest, as soon as I sell, the market's going to go up, and as soon as I buy, the market's going to fall. So I just keep my hands away from the trading tab, and yeah, I just dollar cost average into it, and I think there's a lot of value in the long run. I see a lot of value when people saying you stop denominating your life in INR or USD, you start denominating your life in BTC, and well, I'm not at that stage yet, but I'm definitely leaning towards it.
Getting close, and the absolute best way is dollar cost averaging. I've mentioned a couple times in my interview that most of my crypto net worth is in Ether. And it's because I about a little over 2 years ago, I started buying 1 Ether every single day. Now it's gotten too expensive, but and the reason why I did that is I knew like that's the hard part. It's like dollar cost averaging. I call it Ether cost averaging is the best way. If you'd bought a little bit of Bitcoin the first time you heard of it and just held on, even small amounts, that's the best way to do it. So it's not really even trading. It definitely is long-term invest holding.
Yeah, really, Rahul. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm looking forward to the NFT marketplace. I'm looking forward to the app as well. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about what you guys have in store on ZebPay in India, and the fact that we're in the middle of a very, very exciting year. There's a lot of innovation happening, and yeah, pleasure to meet you and be here on BlockChai. Thanks for inviting me.
Anoush, thank you for joining us on BlockChai. It's great. We really love what you're doing. And to some, how can people find you? What website or social media handles can they find you?
Sure. So my Twitter handle's my same name, and if they'd like to reach out to me on through my website, it's called quagmire.in.
Thank you, Anoush. Really appreciate it, sure. And we hope to talk to you soon. And we'll keep on buying some Bitcoin.